All right, let's jump right in. We're about to take a trip back in time, and we're going to get our boots muddy. We're stepping right into the smoke, the noise, and the sheer fury of the 10th century. In this explainer, we're going back to a place that was once the brutal, bustling capital of the Viking world in Britain, the legendary city of Jorvik. So, try and picture this. It's November 866. A thick, cold fog is clinging to the River Ouse. Then, out of that fog, you see them. Silent, deadly, the silhouettes of Viking longships. This is the Great Heathen Army. They've already torn a path through eastern England, and now they've come for the great northern city of York. The Anglo-Saxon defenders, they had no idea what was coming. They were caught completely off guard. Before the sun was even fully up, the city was surrounded. By nightfall, it had fallen. The Vikings took this ancient Roman and Anglo-Saxon city and they gave it a new name, Jorvik, and it would stay in their iron grip for nearly 100 years. But here's the thing you have to understand. This wasn't just another raid. This wasn't a smash and grab. This was colonization. The Vikings weren't just passing through. They were here to stay, and they were about to transform this place into something entirely new. And this conquest, it completely flipped the city's identity on its head. See, before the Vikings, the city, then called Jorvik, was a famous center of Christian learning and prayer. But the Vikings saw its potential, and boom, it becomes an economic powerhouse. They took a city of prayers and turned it into a city of pure profit. And the key to it all was the River Ouse. The very same river that brought the invaders in their longships became this massive commercial highway. Suddenly, you have goods flowing in from Dublin, from the fjords of Scandinavia, from all across the vast Norse world. Jorvik becomes a true global hub in the middle of the Dark Ages. It's pretty incredible. Okay, so let's step off the busy docks for a second and head into the heart of the city itself. The moment you do, wow. The sheer scale of it, the noise, the chaos, it just hits you. This is what life was really like in the grimy, crowded streets of 10th century Jorvik. But just how crowded are we talking about? I mean, really, think about it. After the Roman Empire collapsed, big cities in Britain basically vanished for a while. So, take a guess. How many people do you think the Vikings managed to cram into this one fortified town? 10,000 people. Now, that might not sound like much to us today, but for medieval Britain, that is a metropolis. It's huge. 10,000 souls crammed together into a chaotic maze of tiny, narrow streets. You had staggering wealth right up against the most brutal, filthy living conditions imaginable. And if we could actually walk down one of those streets, like the famous Coppergate, the very first thing that would hit you wouldn't be a sight or a sound, it would be the smell. I'm not kidding. Archaeologists and historians say it would have been an overwhelming physical force just walloping you. And here's why. Just imagine the air. It's a thick, pungent mix of smoke from hundreds of wood fires, rotting food and fish guts thrown into the mud, animal manure everywhere, and the harsh, nasty chemicals from workshops like tanneries. Mix all that together, and yep, that's the real, stomach-churning perfume of the 10th century. And this is where the story gets really amazing. Beneath all that grime, a historical miracle was waiting. In the 1970s, archaeologists digging in that exact spot, Coppergate, found the Viking streets perfectly preserved. The wet, oxygen-free soil had basically vacuum-sealed everything for 1,000 years. Wood, leather, fabrics, even seeds, giving us this perfect, unbelievable snapshot of their daily lives. And those discoveries get us to the real engine of the city, because Jorvik wasn't just a place of plunder, it was a manufacturing powerhouse. So that stereotype of the mindless, raging berserker, just throw it out the window. These people were meticulous, highly skilled craftspeople. You'd walk down the street, and in one cramped workshop, you'd see a wood carver, hunched over, turning raw timber into these beautiful, intricate designs that decorated their ships and their homes. Right next door, you'd feel this blast of heat from a forge. In there, a blacksmith is hammering red-hot iron, making everything from deadly swords and axes to everyday farming tools and nails. A little further on, you might see a jeweler meticulously working with silver and amber, crafting these complex Norse rings and brooches. And these weren't just decorations, they were a way to carry your wealth around with you. And, of course, that powerful smell we talked about, a lot of it came from the leather workers. They were taking raw animal hides and using some pretty potent methods to create the tough shoes, belts, and armor that were absolutely essential for Viking life. So what does all this add up to? A pretty sophisticated economy. And here's the ultimate proof. The Vikings were so confident, so established in their rule, that they started minting their own coins. And we're not talking random lumps of silver. These were legitimate coins, stamped with the names of their kings. That is a massive statement. It basically screams, we're in charge and we're not going anywhere. But all this wealth, all this industry, it was built on a very violent foundation. Because making all that treasure is one thing. Holding on to it is something else entirely. Let's be very clear. The prosperity of Jorvik was guarded by extreme, unforgiving violence. To live here was to walk on a knife's edge. And no ruler embodied that violence more than the man who casts the longest, darkest shadow over 10th century York. His name tells you everything you need to know. Eric. Bloodaxe. And no, that wasn't some cool nickname. It was a title he earned through pure, unadulterated brutality. His reign pretty much sums up the cycle of power in Viking York. There were no peaceful elections here. You rose to power with violence. You ruled through terror. And you almost always died by the sword. Living in Jorvik meant knowing your life existed at the whim of men just like him. But, even the most terrifying rulers can't hold back the tide of history. The independent Viking kingdom of Jorvik was surrounded by enemies, and that violent, unstable way of life just couldn't last forever. And after nearly a century of Norse rule, it all came to a predictably violent end. In the year 954, Eric Bloodaxe was killed in battle. And when he fell, the independent Viking kingdom of York died right along with him. It was over. But their legacy, it never truly vanished. The Vikings didn't just rule the city, they rebuilt it in their own fierce, industrious image. In fact, if you go to modern York today and walk down that famous street called the Shambles, you are still following the exact street plan first laid down by these North conquerors 1,000 years ago. The ghost of Jorvik is still there, literally in the foundations of the city. And that leaves you with a pretty fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? Just how many other histories, other ghost cities, lie buried and forgotten right beneath our own feet?